Good afternoon, everyone. So today, okay, this is class English for tourism, hotel and tourism. Today I will be doing page number 13, question number 1, speaking, and then I'll go over all these points that you have. It's page number 1, sorry, number 13, page number 13. Okay, so I will read every question and try to answer it. So in this case, you can check your homework and how you performed in your homework. Um, okay, let's start. Question number 1. Working groups discuss these questions. A. How do you find out about job vacancies? Now, this is very interesting, questions. How do you find about job vacancies? There are many ways to find about job vacancies. You can find them in newspapers. You can find them in Facebook pages. You can find them in online websites. And most importantly, you can find them on the same companies that they ask for a job. For example, if you want to apply for a professor to work as a professor of English, then you go to the University of Jordan and you look for a button uh, called careers, and you click on it and you'll find the jobs posted, and in this case you can apply for it. How do you apply? Now, application these days uh, is turned online, so online application is the only way to apply for a job. Have you ever applied for a job, and what did you have to do? Now, this is question is up to you to answer. If you applied for a job, then you tell us about it. If you don't, then just skip this question. Now, for me, I applied for many jobs. Most of the jobs that I applied for, uh, I submitted an online application, and I had an interview, or many interviews, in fact. And after the interviews, then I got the acceptance letter. Now, number 5, in order to apply for a job, you usually have to send a curriculum vitae, CV in the US, called resume, and a covering letter. These documents are very important because they are the first impression you give. Now, work in groups, read the statements about CVs and covering letters. On the basis of your knowledge and experience, decide if you agree with them. Now, we have from A to O, we have certain statements. Now, do you agree or disagree with these statements? We will read them carefully and we will comment on them, okay? Now, the first statement, curriculum vitae is more acceptable if it is handwritten. Now, the answer is wrong. Now, curriculum vitae or CVs have to be, typed and have to be written in Microsoft Word, and they have to be well organized, and they have to use a font that is acceptable and readable for the people who read your CV. Now, covering letter should be handwritten. Not really. You have to do it and you have to type it on Microsoft Word. So both, no. The question or statement number A and statement number B. Now C, you should always include a photograph. Now, photograph is not, I don't think it's very important to include a photograph. Some people put photograph, but in general, you don't need to, because when you apply for a job, people will not look at you and how beautiful you are. They will look at how professional you are. They will look at your expertise, your professional experience, but they will not look at your facial expressions. Uh, so I don't think it's important to put a photograph in your CV. The longer a CV is, the better. Now, this is one of the statements that you have to pay attention to. Now, CVs should be very short and concise, but at the same time, it must mention the most important things about you as a person. For example, if I were in a committee and I want to read your CV, and I find your CV has, let's say, 10 pages, and another person has a CV that has 2 pages, I will be happy to read the 2-page CV and exclude the 10-page CV because they have too many or too much information to read and look at. So I would skip the 10-page CV and look at the one-page CV. So make sure that your CV short, but at the same time you have to mention the things that you really have experience in and the things that you achieve in your life. So you don't need to skip to make it short, but don't exaggerate and over exaggerate about your CV. A CV should list experience in chronological order. Now, this is okay. This is very tricky question. It depends. Honestly, it depends because the kind of job that you are applying for determines what experiences you should start with. For example, you have an experience as a teacher at the university, and you have an experience as a teacher at school, and you want to apply for a job as a school teacher. Now, in this case, you have to put the experience of you being a school teacher at the beginning, and then put the experience of you being a college professor in the end, because experience, you put experience based on its relevance to the job, not based on the chronology. The chronology does not matter. It is best to explain foreign qualifications and give an approximate equivalent in the country to which you are applying. I think this is true because, at least you have to explain it in English, which is the international language, and everyone can understand it. So make sure that everything that you mention is explained. Sometimes, people put abbreviations or acronyms in their CVs, and people do not understand what they mean. For example, you mentioned that you have ICDL. What does ICDL mean? Not all people know this abbreviation or this acronym. So you have to explain that this is stands for International Driving License for Computers, etc. So you have to explain when you have these terms that may not be understood by people. There is no point in mentioning outside activities, hobbies, etc. Um, Honestly, I don't know about this. Some CVs they talk about hobbies, and some people don't mention it. If your CV is so long, then don't mention it. You don't need to talk about your hobbies unless your hobbies are related to the job that you are applying for. For example, if you are applying for a teaching job and you say, okay, I like to read, then this is a good thing. But generally speaking, hobbies, they are not that important, and people will not hire you because of your hobbies. They will hire you because of your qualification and because of your experience, but they will not hire you because of your hobbies. So it depends. If you have like a short CV, then put your hobbies. If you have a long CV, then make sure that you skip them. Each CV should be customized for the job you are applying for. Yeah, and this is what I do. In my computer, I have two CVs. I have a very long CV, and I have CV tailored or customized for the job that I'm applying for. Because if you have different experiences and you are applying for a specific job, now you don't need to mention all experiences that you have. You have to mention only the relevant experiences in the CV. So you have to customize it, you have to shorten it, you have to make it very concise and precise and related to the job that you are applying for. Now, perfect prose isn't expected. Note form is perfectly acceptable. Well, you have to be perfect in all regards. I think prose and form are of a great importance. You have to be communicative. Your CV has to be communicative, and you have to give us a clear message about you. So the prose is very important. At the same time, the form or the shape of the CV has to be well organized, because if you have a good form and if you have a good content or prose, then you are a good person and I will hire you. But if you have a problem in these things, then you will have a problem in being hired. So make sure that the prose is good and also acceptable, and the form is acceptable as well. Use space constructively. Don't mention failures or irrelevant experiences. That's true. you don't apply for a job and you say, okay, I want to apply for a teacher at your school, and you mention in the CV that you have been expelled or you have been kicked out of a school because of low performance. Now, this kind of experience should be excluded. Only talk about the positives and avoid the negatives. Okay, talk about the things that make you get the job, and don't talk about the things that make you lose the job. So it's not about honesty. It's not about being frank or truthful. It's about how you sell yourself to the employer, how to tell the people that you are good and they should hire you. Don't include your previous salary or salaries expectations unless requested. But that's I think that's good. You know why? Because they may pay you more than what you put at your CV. So once you put a salary in your CV, it means that you limit yourself to this salary. Keep it, open unless they requested that you mention the salary. In this case, you put it. You can lie on a CV; they'll never find out anyways. This is morally unacceptable. Don't lie. Don't lie on your CV, and try to be, logical. Try to be truthful and say what you can do and what you can perform. Don't say that you can do something and then in the real world you cannot do it. And be, very practical and say the things that you can do. Any gap in the date should be explained. Hmm, I don't think so unless, well, it depends. It depends. If the employer asks you to do or explain why you have gaps here, then you can explain them, or simply you can put in brackets that these dates, where you were in a sick leave or you were in a sabbatical leave or maternity leave, whatever leave that you have. It's best to send the CV by fax unless requested to do so. I think this is not true, because if you send it by fax, it means that you share your information with everybody. Try to send it through online application or through email if requested, but don't do it by fax because you don't know who will get hold of your CV. So avoid this. The last point: always make a follow-up phone call a few days after sending off your CV. Well, that depends also. You send the CVs. If they say on their websites that, sometimes they say on the website that don't call us or phone us if we don't reply to you. And if they say this, don't phone or call them. But if they don't say anything about calling or phoning the company, and you've been waiting for a long time and no one uh, talked to you, in this case you have the chance to call them and inquire about the CV that you have. Okay, so I cover all these questions. Hopefully, this will help. And I'll quickly go to the next, or not to the next page, but the one on the right side here. Reading CV. Number 6. Working partner. Students A read the article How to Write a CV, and how students B read the article The Brighter Way to Find a Job on page 103. Okay, so I'll read the article, and then we will explain some stuff here. Okay, quickly. How to write a CV. When applying for a job, you'll be in competition with a number of other candidates. Your CV is important. Interviewers will decide whether or not to see you on the strength of what you have written. Don't think of it as a list of facts. It should sum up your personal, educational, career history, as well as being an indication of your strengths and weaknesses. Here are a few suggestions. Now, I totally agree with this, except with the idea that you talk about your weaknesses. I don't think it's good to talk about your weaknesses in CV. Just avoid this, but talk about your strength and try to focus on the things that are related and relevant to your job. Presentation. Always type your CV. Use a good typewriter or word processor. As we said, no written CV. If a CV is handwritten, it goes into the waste paper basket. It means that no one will consider it. Never send a CV. Use a quality paper. Don't give the impression that this is just another photocopy. So it means that whenever you photocopy your CV, make sure that it's very clean and clear. because some people try to photocopy it, and then there will be some dark, marks on it, and this is not good for your CV. So make sure that the CV is clean and very clear. Never send a CV without covering letter explaining which vacancy you are applying for. If you are writing on Spake, send short letter explaining what kind of post you are looking for. And this is true because when you apply for a job and you send a CV, you may have, things that are mentioned in the CV, but they are not related to the job. So you have to write a covering letter that specifically talks about the CV itself. Don't fax a CV unless you're asked to. It's a confidential document. That's true. Don't fax the CV, but make sure that it is sent by email or through online application. Now the content. Write a list of important headings. These should include your name, date of birth, your address, and your email address if you have one, phone number at work and home, your record, and so on. Now I think this is somehow tricky because your address is important, your name is important. I don't think your date of birth is important. Why do I need to know your date of birth? I mean, job is a job. If you can perform it, that's good. If you can't, then don't apply for it. So I don't know. But some CVs, they mention date of birth. Some they don't. Most of the time, I see people writing CVs without mentioning the date of birth. So it's better to skip it. But if you put it, that's fine. Start with your most recent job, work backward. And like the last job that you have done with, mention it at the beginning, and then go backward. Don't leave out any vital information. If you spend a year or two traveling, say so. Years that are unaccounted for will seem suspicious. Okay, so, and that's well, for years that you don't have work. Now if you have like months, that's fine, but if you have like 3-4 years without finding a job, you may put it in brackets and talk about this. You say, for example, I have been on a research leave, I have been on a like a religious leave, etc. You have to explain this, but not in detail. Don't include any negative information such as exam failures or lost jobs. Be positive about yourself, but don't lie or you will undermine yourself. And that we discussed this because this CV, you have to sell yourself, you have to promote yourself, and don't underestimate yourself. Don't ask your CV to be returned. Many companies keep CVs on file for future reference. Again, CV is just make a copy of it and send it. You don't wait for its return. So because it is mentioned here that companies have their own files and they keep these CVs in their files. Okay, so quickly look at Mike Mortimer's CV and answer the questions. What was his first post? Okay, so here we have some questions here. Look at these questions, and I don't want to go in details about these questions, but this is the way CV is supposed to be. Now, our homework, the last homework that I ask you to do is to write a curriculum vitae or CV, right? So you may do it in this format. For example, you write curriculum vitae, you put your name, Wael Salam, date of birth, you put your date of birth if you want, you put your address, you have to be very specific, you have to put your telephone number, and then the marital status. I don't think this is important too. You don't need to mention that you are single or married. I don't know. I feel like this is unnecessary, but if you need to mention it, that's fine. Now, education here, you put the dates and you put the dates when you start working at or when you start getting these certificates. For example, the first certificate of theme park management, Miami University, Florida, USA. He got it from September 93 to February 94. So that's like it takes him a year to get that. And then we have the next job here from May 92 to February 93. That's the diploma in hospitality and management. And then he goes down. If you look at these dates, you feel like that he's see that this CV, starts with the recent date and goes backward from 1994. It goes down all the way to 1983. Okay, so this is the way you do the education. And then languages, you talk about what language you speak: Arabic, English, French, etc. Employment, what kind of jobs that you get. You can put the jobs here, and you can also put with the jobs the dates too. You can say, okay, in 2005 I worked in at the University of Jordan, and in 2003 I was, a shop assistant at, for example, Marhaba Mall. All right. And then if you have, like, you have to mention other stuff that are related to your CV. For example, you can talk about, first, you talk about your education. Second, you talk about your experiences. Third, you talk about languages. Fourth, you can talk about, about you as a person, like, what makes you a good candidate for the CV. Like, for example, you work under pressure, you meet the deadlines, you work as a team, you have a leadership, etc. So all these qualities should be mentioned in the CV to tell the people that you are good. Now, I think you as a student, what you need to do in the assignment is to have like at least 4 or 5 parts. The first part is the introduction: your name, your address, telephone number, etc. Second, your education. Third, your work experience. Fourth, languages. And five, any skills that help us, that help you, get the job. And if you want to add extra one, which is six, you title it as references. Now, in any job, you have to mention references. For example, you apply for a job as a teacher, okay? And the school asks for references. You send me an email and asking me, Mr. Salam, could you please write a letter of reference to support me in this job? And I will write this letter of reference. So simply in the CV, you put my name, my phone number, and my position, so people will contact me to get extra information about the job that you are applying for. Okay, I think that's all for today. Now I'm gonna give you. I just want you to watch this video, and that's it. I want you to watch it, and you comment on this video by saying I watched the video, and that's enough. I'm not gonna give you an extra exercise or homework, because I know that you have too many homeworks these days. So I want to make it easy for you, and this is the only thing that I will post on e-learning. Is just you have to watch this video and comment on my YouTube channel and say I watched the video, and that's all you need to do. Just listen to it, and that's it. Thank you very much. I hope this helps you understand the way you write a CV and some of the questions that are related to CV writing. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.